was in for. But the other great thing was I knew kind of what Tom was interested in when pitching this movie. I knew he needed an emotional hook for him to be invested in this movie. He wasn't going to come back to Top Gun just to come back just to fly in the planes. He would need an emotional hook for him to get invested in this character. And so, from the very first meeting that Jerry and I had with him, that's where we started with laying out this story of Rooster and that reconciliation of this relationship taking place against this mission that takes them deep into enemy territory. That, I think, was the thing that got Tom interested in doing this again.
Flew to Paris, where Tom was filming Mission Impossible. And Joe had the idea for the movie. He had a lookbook, and he pitched the story that you just saw to him. And Tom looked at him and said, I'll do this, but we got to do it for real. They have to fly the planes, they have to be in the planes. We got to figure out a way where the actors don't throw up in the planes like they did in the first one. We couldn't use any footage, only a little bit of Tom. So we have to devise a way to do this. So Tom picked up the phone, called the people at Paramount, said, I want to do another Top Gun, but it's got to be real.
Wow. It's amazing because they did all take flying lessons, and I think Glenn Powell even has his license now.
Yeah, I think Glenn has his license. I think Tarzan is working towards his license. Tom, I think, gave each of them a package of flying lessons after we'd done the movie, just so they could continue that if they're interested in a couple of them done that.
So we have them flying all over the place now.
Possibly.
Not just actors. See, you can get your flying license if you get a job in this kind of a movie. It's so real, though. That's what makes it real. I mean, it's not CGI oriented at all. It feels real. It feels like they are flying. Obviously, they have experienced pilots with them, but
yeah, they were all being flown by real Navy Top Gun pilots. So one reason why the footage is spectacular is because we had the best pilots in the world flying all those planes for us. So, we figured out where to put the cameras, how to get the actors ready, but when it came time to actually do those sequences, those were Top Gun pilots and lieutenants in the Navy, men and women, flying all those planes for us. So they deserve a tremendous amount of credit.
That's amazing. You had a cooperation, Jerry, from the Navy in order to make this real.
Well, the first time we went to the Pentagon years ago, back in '84, '85, there was an admiral in North Island, Miramar, that didn't want to have any part of us. And just said, forget it, this is only going to hurt my career, something was wrong. So Tom and I flew to Washington and met with the Secretary of the Navy, John Lehman. And John said, I get this will be good for us. And that admiral was removed. And we went to Miramar and filmed it. But we got cooperation, but it wasn't really as enthusiastic as this time. The recruiting went up 500% after the first Top Gun went out. So the Navy realized that this could only be good for them. Now, you have to understand that what actors went through to be in this movie. First of all, they were put in first a prop plane, then they were put in an aerobatic prop, and they were put into a jet, and then finally in the F-18. That was over 3 months. So they were knocked around in these jets for 3 months. They were beat up, unfortunately, but in the end, it shows in the film. It shows the expression on their faces, just what they're going through. They're handling 5, 6, 7 Gs. They love the experience. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience for an actor. But that's what you do when you want to make a movie the right way. You want to show what it's really like to be an aviator. And my career, in part, was because I give you an inside look into a world you'll never be part of. And that's what Top Gun does. Now also, the actors, Joe had a little cockpit on the ground, so we rehearsed them before they went up in the air. He had 6 cameras around the actors. So they'd send them up, we couldn't see what they were doing. They'd fly up there for 2 hours, they'd come back on the ground, Joe and everybody would look at the footage, and if it wasn't right, they had to go back up again. So, but look, they knew what they were getting into, and they loved it. I think you'll speak to any actor who worked on this movie, and they said this is the greatest thing that they've worked on in their career so far.
What the Navy looked like in 1986. But, you know, from our first trip to Top Gun, when we were doing research for the film, we saw wide diversity in the pilots. We saw women were flying Top Gun jets along with the men. So what we did on the film, you know, when we cast the film, we just cast what we saw Top Gun is today, and it was all those different faces, men and women, and it was spectacular. We always had, whenever you see Phoenix in the jet, there's always a female pilot in the front seat flying her.
Yeah, for real here, you know, and just if you look at all of this cast, the ensemble nature of it is pretty extraordinary, and they each have their own individual personalities that comes through. They don't get buried in, like I said, it's not a special effects driven movie as much as a human movie.
No, I mean, even the first film was a drama wrapped in an action film. It's a coming of age, a rite of passage story of a young Maverick. Now he's older, but we still wanted it to be a drama, and it was important to cast the absolute best actors in each role. Now it was my second movie with Tom. It was also my second movie with Jennifer Connelly, and my second movie with Miles Teller. So I had just worked with both of them, and just thought they would be.
That was in Spiderhead, which
No, it was in Only the Brave.
Only the Brave.
I was working on Only the Brave when I was talking to Jerry about this, and when I, you know, was thinking about who could play Goose's son, I had just worked with Miles, and he was one of, you know, was my first choice, but we put them through we put Miles and a couple other actors, including Glenn, through the process to see, you know, testing for Rooster, and Miles came out on top. Now the good thing about that process is when Glenn was doing his version of the Rooster scenes, Jerry leaned over to me and said, "This guy would make a great hangman." And he was right. So
Jerry's always thinking here. He says, "We're not going to waste this audition. We got another role." What made you think he'd be great in that role?
He's got an edge about him. He's really handsome. There's something about him that it's a real macho quality, and there's a friendliness about him that you just love. And what's interesting for the actors here, his agent didn't want him to do the movie. He really didn't want him to do the movie because he felt he had to have the lead. He had to have Miles' part rather than the part he got. And Tom said, "Let me talk to him." So the agent calls me and says, because he respects Tom so much, he'll sit with Tom. Just know he's not going to do the movie. So he sits down with Tom. Tom said, first he asked him, "What kind of career do you want?" And he said, "I like a career like you." And Tom said, "Don't pick the part, pick the movie." And that's what Tom's been doing his whole career. Pick the movie.